Cancer. Before we get into the tarot, I want to quickly talk about the astrology because September has a pretty clear theme for you. And honestly, I think you're going to feel this one quite strongly. Mars is moving through Cancer for most of the month. So there's a lot more momentum around you personally. You may feel more motivated, more impatient, more willing to actually do something about the things that have been bothering you. There's very much an energy of, okay, enough talking about it. What am I actually going to do? But right at the beginning of September, Mars clashes with Saturn in your career and self-direction sector. So you've got one part of you wanting to move and another part of your life saying, not like that. And I think that distinction matters, okay? Because Saturn and Neptune are already retrograde through this area of your chart. And Chiron moves back into Aries later in the month as well. So there's been a much bigger rethink happening around where you're actually going. Think career, purpose, success, even what you want your life to look like in a few years from now. Something about that may not fit in quite the same way anymore. And then we've got all of this Virgo energy moving through your third house, including the Virgo New Moon, which brings your attention back to your thoughts, your decisions, and the way you're looking at things. So September may not necessarily give you an entirely new problem. It may give you a completely different way of seeing an old one. Uranus also turns retrograde in your 12th house. And I really like this in the context of everything else because that can bring something unconscious to the surface. So think a pattern, a reaction, something you've been doing without really questioning why. You might suddenly catch yourself and go, oh, okay, that explains a lot. There are some lighter areas opening up as well. Venus moves into Scorpio and your 5th house. So love, creativity, fun, attraction, just doing things because you actually enjoy them becomes much more important. And Jupiter is still moving through your 2nd house, continuing this bigger story around money, confidence, and what you believe you're worth. But then we get towards the end of September, and the Aries Full Moon lands right back in that career and life direction area. So something that we're talking about at the beginning of this reading could actually come full circle by the end of the month. There may be a decision. There may even be a realization, or you might simply get very clear on what you are and are not willing to keep putting your energy into. So rather than jumping straight into career or the full moon, I actually want to start with you because Mars is moving through your sign, and that tells me there's something in September that you're not really supposed to sit on anymore. So let's start there, I think. Where is September pushing Cancer to take action? Okay, Cancer, every single card here is a Pentacles card. So we have the 10 of Pentacles, the 4 of Pentacles, and the Knight of Pentacles. Whatever September is pushing you towards, this doesn't feel reckless at all. It actually feels really practical. So the 10 of Pentacles is the bigger picture. Think stability, security, something that lasts. Whether that's money, work, your home, your family, or just getting yourself into a position where you feel a little more settled. And then right in the middle, we have the 4 of Pentacles, which makes me think there's something you've been holding on to quite tightly because it feels safe. That could literally be money, but it could also be a job, a routine, a plan, even an idea of how something has to happen. And I think that's where Mars moving through Cancer becomes interesting, because I don't think September is telling you to blow everything up and start again. The Knight of Pentacles is basically the opposite of that. It's saying pick the thing that actually matters to you, start moving towards it properly. Slowly if you need to, carefully, but consistently. So there's almost this weird contrast here where Mars is giving you the push to move, but the cards are saying the way forward isn't through rushing, it's through building. And with the 10 of Pentacles sitting at the beginning of this spread, I really do feel like there's a long-term goal behind all of this. Something you want to make more secure, more sustainable, more real. The Four of Pentacles is the only thing making me pause, because part of you may want that future while another part of you is still gripping onto whatever feels familiar right now. And that actually brings us perfectly into the Saturn piece of your astrology, Cancer, because if September is trying to move you towards something more stable long term, what is making Cancer hesitate, resist, or feel like they can't quite move forward yet? Okay, yeah, this actually makes a lot of sense after that first spread. So we've got the 7 of Wands, the 2 of Coins, or Pentacles, and the 8 of Pentacles. Honestly, I don't think the problem here is that you're not doing enough. If anything, it looks like you're doing too much. So the 7 of Wands feels like you're constantly having to hold your ground or keep pushing against something. There's this sense of being under pressure. Like the second you stop fighting for it, everything's going to slip backwards. Then the 2 of Pentacles is literally trying to keep everything in the air at once. So work, responsibilities, money, other people, whatever you've got going on, there's a lot being managed here. And then we finish with the 8 of Pentacles, which is work again. Putting the hours in, trying to improve something, trying to get it right. I actually think the resistance Saturn is bringing up this month may have less to do with whether you're capable of getting where you want to go, and more to do with how much you're already carrying while you're trying to get there. Because remember, the first spread was all Pentacles. You clearly want to build something solid. You're willing to put the work in. That part isn't really in question, but there's a difference between consistently working towards something and constantly feeling like you have to fight to keep everything together. And I wonder if that's one of the things September is trying to show you, because you've gotten so used to being the person who handles it, fixes it, keeps going, works harder, that you don't even really question whether all of it still needs to be yours to carry. And that brings me into something else happening in your astrology, because Uranus is turning retrograde in your 12th house this month. And that can make you suddenly aware of patterns you've been running almost automatically. So I want to go underneath this a little bit now. What pattern is Cancer becoming aware of in September that they may not have recognized before? Okay, the 4 of Pentacles is back. And now we've got the King of Pentacles and Death, which actually makes that first spread make a lot of sense, okay? Because I think the pattern Cancer is becoming aware of is just how much security matters to you, and what happens when that need for security turns into holding on. So the King of Pentacles wants things handled. He wants to know the bills are paid, the plan makes sense, everything is under control. There's nothing wrong with that at all. But then Death is sitting right next to him, so something is changing. And the 4 of Pentacles is basically standing there going, yeah, but can we keep everything exactly the way it is while it changes? And obviously no. I think that might be the uncomfortable realization this month. You want the 10 of Pentacles, you can want more stability, more money, a better career, a stronger foundation, whatever that bigger goal is for you. But you might also be recognizing that you've been trying to create that future without letting go of the thing that no longer belongs in it. And the 4 of Pentacles coming out twice now feels important to me. There's something you're gripping because at some point it made you feel safe. And maybe it still does. But Death in the middle of this spread is saying that safety and familiarity aren't necessarily the same thing. And honestly, that fits Uranus turning retrograde in your 12th house really well, because this feels like one of those patterns you don't necessarily notice while you're doing it. You just think, I'm being sensible, I'm protecting what I've built, I'm making sure nothing goes wrong. And then at some point you realize, oh, maybe I'm also making it really difficult for anything to change. So we've gone pretty deep already, and I actually want to change direction for a second because there's another side to your September astrology. Venus is moving into Scorpio in your 5th house. So think love, creativity, pleasure, and the things you actually want, not just the things you feel responsible for. And after all these pentacles and all this talk about work and security, I'm very curious about this. Where is Cancer being asked to follow their heart again in September? Okay, Cancer, this feels really nice after everything we've just had. So we've got the Ace of Cups, the Page of Coins, and the Two of Wands. The Ace of Cups is such a clear shift in energy. There's something here that feels like it brings you back to yourself emotionally. Something you're excited about. Something that feels fresh. Something that actually gives you something back instead of constantly asking more from you. That could absolutely be love for some of you, especially with Venus moving through your 5th house. But I don't want to box this into romance because the 5th house is also creativity, passion, hobbies, self-expression, the things you do because you genuinely enjoy them. And then the Page of Pentacles is interesting because we've had so much Pentacles energy already, but this feels different. Earlier, the Pentacles felt much like responsibility, security, work, keeping everything together. The Page feels more like, I want to see where this could go. It's still practical. You're not suddenly throwing caution to the wind, but you're willing to start something, learn something, put some energy into an idea because it actually interests you. And then we have the Two of Wands, which feels like looking beyond where you currently are. There's a choice here, but more than that, I think there's a sense of possibility. Like you're starting to realize that the future doesn't have to just be a continuation of what you've already been doing. And that feels really important after death and that repeating Four of Pentacles, because maybe part of letting go isn't just about losing something. Maybe it's about finally making room for something you actually want. And with Jupiter moving through your 2nd house this month, I want to bring this back to value now. Not just money, but what you believe you deserve, what you're willing to invest in, and what you're starting to see as possible for yourself. So let's look at that next. What is Jupiter trying to expand for Cancer around money, confidence, and self-worth this September? Okay, and now we've completely switched suites again. We've got the Nine of Swords, the Knight of Swords, and the Three of Swords. All swords. And for a question about money, confidence, and self-worth, I actually think that's really telling because none of these cards are talking about what you physically have. They're talking about what's happening in your head. The Nine of Swords is worry, it's overthinking, lying awake, thinking about everything that could go wrong. And then the Knight of Swords comes charging through the middle, which can be that feeling of needing to figure it out now, needing to fix it, prove yourself, get ahead of something before it catches up with you. Then we land on the Three of Swords. So I do wonder whether there's an old disappointment sitting underneath some of this. Maybe something didn't work out the way you expected. Maybe you've experienced rejection, financial stress, a career setback, or there's just been a point in your life where you felt like you weren't where you should be. And sometimes those experiences quietly become the way we measure ourselves. I should be further ahead. I should be earning more. I should have figured this out by now. That's what this spread feels like to me. And Jupiter moving through your 2nd house can absolutely bring growth materially, but Jupiter also expands whatever it touches. So before your confidence grows, it may make you very aware of the beliefs that have been limiting it. Because maybe the thing that needs to expand first isn't your bank account. Maybe it's the way you see your own value. And I really don't think it's a coincidence that we've pulled 3 swords here when your Virgo New Moon is happening in the part of your chart connected to your thoughts, your mindset, and the way you communicate with yourself. So rather than moving away from this, I want to follow it. What's the Virgo New Moon helping Cancer think about differently? All right, this is interesting because we've got the Six of Swords, the Four of Cups, and the Five of Wands. And I think the Virgo New Moon is helping you realize that not everything deserves this much mental energy. The Six of Swords is literally moving away from something mentally. It's that point where you go, I actually don't want to keep thinking about this the same way anymore. And then the Four of Cups in the middle feels like you've reached a point of being a little bit over it. Maybe you've been looking at the same problem for so long, going over the same options, having the same conversation with yourself, and none of it feels particularly satisfying anymore. And then we've got the Five of Wands. That's noise, competing opinions, internal conflict, trying to work out which direction to go while there are 10 different thoughts arguing with each other in your head. And after those 3 swords we just pulled around money and self-worth, this actually feels really connected, because I wonder if September is showing you how much of your stress comes from constantly trying to think your way into certainty, trying to predict every outcome, trying to make sure you choose correctly, trying to mentally prepare for everything that could go wrong. And the Six of Swords almost feels like, what if you just stopped fighting with yourself about it? Not because you suddenly have every answer, but because you don't actually need every answer before you can move forward. And I think the Four of Cups is also asking you to notice where you've become so focused on what isn't working, or what hasn't happened yet, that you might not be seeing what's already starting to open up around you, especially because we literally just had the Ace of Cups and Page of Pentacles. There is something new here, but you might have to get out of that mental tug of war long enough to actually recognize it. And now I really want to look at the end of the month, because we started this reading talking about your career, your direction, where your life is actually going. And the Aries Full Moon lands right in that part of your chart. So after everything we've seen here around security, change, self-worth, and getting out of your own head, what is coming to a head for Cancer around the Aries Full Moon? Okay, the Four of Cups has come out again. And for your Aries Full Moon, we've also got Two of Swords and the Seven of Pentacles. This doesn't actually feel like some huge external event suddenly happening around your career. It feels more like you're reaching a point where you have to be honest with yourself about something. Because the Four of Cups is that feeling of, I'm just not that into this anymore. Something isn't fulfilling you the way it used to. Maybe you've outgrown it. Maybe you're frustrated with how slowly it's moving. Or maybe you've just been sitting with this feeling for a while and haven't really wanted to admit it. And then the Two of Swords makes sense, because knowing you're dissatisfied doesn't automatically mean knowing what you want to do about it. There's hesitation here. Do I stay? Do I change direction? Do I give this more time? And then we have the Seven of Pentacles, which honestly feels like the most important card in this spread, because this is the card of stepping back and looking at what you've invested into something and asking, is this actually giving me the return I thought it would? And that could be career, absolutely. It could be a business, a long-term goal, something you've been working towards for years. But remember how this reading started. The Ten of Pentacles, the Knight of Pentacles, you wanting to build something solid. Then we kept seeing how hard you've been working to maintain everything. And now by the end of September, I think the full moon is asking you to assess whether all of that effort is actually taking you towards the life you want. Not, have I worked hard enough? Because you clearly have. It's more like, do I still want what I've been working so hard for? And that Four of Cups repeating is making me think there's already a part of you that knows the answer. You might just not be ready to make the decision immediately. And honestly, I don't think the Seven of Pentacles is asking you to. It's asking you to look at it properly. Look at what's growing. Look at what isn't. Look at where your energy has been going and decide what is actually worth continuing to invest in. Which brings the whole reading back to that Mars-Saturn tension we started with. September isn't necessarily telling you to push harder. It might actually be showing you where pushing harder isn't the answer anymore. So before we finish, I want to pull an oracle message and zoom out from all of this. What does Cancer most need to remember as they move through September? Okay, so 2 cards came out for you guys, and these are actually perfect for this reading. We've got voice, speaking your word, with the message to use your voice and speak up. And honestly, Cancer, I think this is really important for you because you can be very good at just that, dealing with things. You feel it, you notice it, you know something's bothering you, but actually saying, no, this isn't working for me, or this is what I need, can be a completely different story. And after everything that's come through today, I don't think September wants you quietly carrying things anymore. We've had the 7 of Wands, the 2 of Pentacles, the 8 of Pentacles, all of that effort, all of that managing. Then the 4 of Pentacles came out twice, showing how tightly you can hold on to something because it feels safe. And then right at the end, the 4 of Cups comes back as well. So if something isn't working, say it. If you're unhappy with something, admit it. Even if the person you need to admit it to is yourself. Because your voice can actually be part of what changes the situation this month. And then we've got Rock, endurance. This says to look for the groundedness in a chaotic situation. And I love that because I don't think September is asking you to react to every emotion or immediately make some huge life decision. It's almost the opposite. Find your footing first. Work out what is solid. What do you know for sure? What actually matters to you? What can you control? Because there's been so much mental energy in this reading as well. The 9 of Swords, the Knight of Swords, 3 of Swords, 2 of Swords. And it would be very easy to get caught up in trying to solve everything at once. You don't need to. You just need something solid underneath you while things are changing. And when I look at this whole reading, Cancer, I really don't think September is about forcing your way into a completely new life overnight. It feels much more like recognizing where your energy has been going and becoming a lot more selective about where it goes next. You're still building something. That 10 of Pentacles right at the beginning made that very clear. But I think September starts changing your relationship with how you get there. Less holding on because you're scared of losing stability. Less pushing just because you've already invested so much. Less staying quiet to keep everything comfortable. And more asking yourself, does this actually make sense for the life I'm trying to build now? You don't need every answer this month. But you do need to be honest about what you already know. And Cancer, that is your September reading. If this reading resonated with you, Cancer, let me know down in the comments what stood out the most, especially if you're already feeling some of these September themes starting to come through. And if you enjoyed the reading, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to join our little soul family here. I'd love to have you as part of the collective. Thank you so much for spending this time with me today, and I hope September brings you clarity, confidence, and the courage to speak up for what you actually want. Take care of yourself, Cancer, and I will see you in the next reading.